Imagine you're sitting in a dimly lit room, long past midnight. The only sound is the scratch of your pen against the page or the distant hum of a half-finished melody. The air feels heavier than it should, charged with something unseen, something pulling at the edges of your thoughts. Ideas spill from your mind too fast to catch, words tumbling over each other, shapes and colors forming where none existed before. You're working like a person possessed, unable to stop, unable to rest, as though something outside yourself is guiding your hand. It feels like inspiration, like a gift. But deep down, in the quiet place where reason still lingers, you wonder, why does it feel so much like hunger? Why does every stroke of genius leave you emptier than before? There have always been whispers about those who create beyond their limits, about poets who burn out too soon, musicians who play until their fingers bleed, artists who disappear into their own visions. Some say it's the price of greatness. Others believe it's something older, something lurking just beneath the surface of ambition. A force that doesn't just inspire but consumes you. This is the story of the Leannán Sídhe, the fairy lover of Celtic mythology. The Leannán Sídhe is not a simple fairy tale figure, nor is she a whimsical spirit of mischief. She exists in the space between passion and destruction, a force that offers both brilliance and ruin in equal measure. Her name translates to fairy lover, but there is no warmth in that title, no gentle romance. She does not take ordinary lovers. She seeks out poets, musicians, and artists, those with restless minds and unrelenting ambition, offering them inspiration beyond human limits. Yet, the gift she bestows is not given freely. It is a bond that consumes, leaving behind masterpieces, but also madness, despair, and an early grave. Her origins are shrouded in uncertainty, buried in the depths of Celtic folklore where myth and reality blur. Some say she is one of the Sídhe, a lingering remnant of Ireland's ancient gods, retreating from the mortal world but still reaching out to claim the souls of those who create. If this is true, she is not a mere spirit, but something far older, a being who has watched the rise and fall of human civilization and remains fascinated by those who burn too brightly. Others believe she is a lost soul, once mortal herself, cursed to wander between worlds, eternally drawn to those who reflect the passion and torment she once knew. There are also those who claim she was never human at all, that she is a force as old as inspiration itself, something that exists only in the presence of brilliance and can never be fully understood. Regardless of where she came from, her presence has been felt for centuries. She is tied to the belief that genius and madness are inseparable, that the greatest minds are often the most tormented. Many of history's most celebrated artists and poets have been haunted by their own talent, unable to escape the pressure of creation. The Celts understood this struggle long before the modern world gave it a name. To them, the burden of art was not just the weight of expectation, but the price of something supernatural. The Leannán Sídhe became the reason why those who reach too high always seemed to fall, why those who touched the heights of inspiration often did not survive it. She does not choose her lovers at random. She is drawn to those who are already consumed by their own ambition, the ones who will never be satisfied with ordinary life, the poets who chase beauty beyond what can be described, the musicians who hear melodies that should not exist, the painters who see visions no one else can. She does not create their talent. She amplifies it, driving them to the edge of their own abilities. The Leannán Sídhe is not merely beautiful. She is unnerving, her presence impossible to ignore. She does not possess the kind of beauty that feels safe or familiar. Instead, she is overwhelming, something that strikes deep in the soul, making those who see her question whether she is real or a fevered vision. There is something unnatural about her, something that makes the air feel heavier when she enters a room, something that makes the heart beat faster, not just with desire but with unease. Her hair is long and flowing, sometimes described as dark as a raven's wing, other times red like fire, shifting as though moved by a breeze that no one else can feel. Some say it shimmers under the moonlight, reflecting colors that do not exist in the mortal world. Her skin is pale, too pale, untouched by time or the elements, with an almost unnatural glow. In the dim light, she appears ethereal, neither fully of this world, nor entirely apart from it. Her movements are fluid, deliberate, graceful in a way that feels more like drifting than walking. She does not move quickly, yet she is always where she needs to be, always just close enough to be felt before she is seen. Her eyes are the most unsettling part of her. They are not merely striking or mesmerizing. They hold something deeper, something that makes those who meet them feel as though they are being unraveled. They do not belong to a simple fairy or a woman of mortal blood. They are too knowing, too intense, shifting between sorrow and amusement, between desire and something colder, something that does not belong in human emotion. Some say her eyes change color depending on who looks at them, reflecting their hidden fears, their deepest desires, or the darkness they try to ignore. To meet her gaze is to feel as though she is seeing everything that lies beneath the surface, everything that has ever been buried. She is always dressed in flowing garments, though their color and texture vary depending on the tale. In some stories, she wears white, untouched and pristine, like a bride who has never been wed. In others, she is clad in deep red, the color of blood, of passion, of warning. Some claim her dress is made of shadows, constantly shifting, never quite settling into a single form. Others say it glows like moonlight, or that it moves like water, as though it is not made of cloth at all. She is never seen in anything ordinary. Her presence is too otherworldly for that. Even in the simplest of settings, she stands apart, untouched by dust, rain, or time. Despite her perfection, there is always something slightly off about her, something just beneath the surface that unsettles those who stand too close. Her beauty is too much, her stillness too unnatural, her presence too intense. Those who see her often feel a tightness in their chest, a sense that they are being pulled toward her. It is not a conscious choice to approach her. It is an instinct, a compulsion, as though the mind has already decided before the body has time to resist. She does not need to speak to ensnare those she desires. The mere sight of her is enough. The longer one looks, the harder it is to turn away, and by the time they realize what has happened, it is already too late. The Leannán Sídhe is not a fairy who grants wishes or a benevolent muse who gently nurtures talent. She is not bound by the human ideas of love, devotion, or kindness. She does not form attachments, nor does she linger with sentiment. Her nature is something older, something beyond morality. She does not see herself as cruel. She simply is, like a fire that burns without concern for what it consumes. She moves through the world unseen, drawn to those whose souls burn with potential. She does not waste her time with the ordinary. She does not seek out farmers, merchants, or warriors. She is not interested in those who wish only to live, to build, to fight, to grow old. Instead, she watches those who reach beyond themselves, those who hunger for something greater, those who cannot be satisfied with the simple things of this world. She seeks the poets who dream in words, the artists who see visions where others see only paint, the musicians who hear melodies that do not yet exist. She seeks those who are already teetering on the edge of obsession, those whose hands itch to create something that will outlive them. Her presence is intoxicating. To those she chooses, she does not appear as a threat, but as the answer to every longing they have ever had. She does not demand, she does not force, she offers. And once an artist has tasted what she can give, they cannot turn away. Under her touch, inspiration is no longer something fleeting, something that comes and goes like the changing of the seasons. It is relentless. It is all-consuming. The poet who once struggled over lines will find words pouring from his mind, as if whispered to him by the gods. The painter who once agonized over his brushstrokes will see colors and shapes in ways he never could before. The musician will hear harmonies that no one else has ever dreamed of, and the notes will fall into place effortlessly, as if they had been waiting for him all along. But this gift does not come without cost. The Leannán Sídhe doesn't steal her lovers' lives outright. It is not her hand that weakens them. Their art consumes them. The hunger to create is never satisfied. There is always one more verse to write, one more song to compose, one more painting to finish before the vision slips away. They stop eating, stop sleeping, stop speaking to others. The world outside their work fades into nothingness, and they are left chasing the brilliance she has given them, chasing it until their bodies fail and their minds unravel. But the Leannán Sídhe does not stay. She never stays. She does not wait for them to beg. She does not linger to watch them die. When she has taken all they have to give, when their bodies are too frail and their minds too fractured to create any longer, she moves on. Hey everyone, just a quick intermission here. I wanted to say thank you for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. Did you know that over 80% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed to the channel? If you've enjoyed this content so far, it would be incredible if you could hit that subscribe button. It's a small gesture, but it really helps the channel grow and ensures that you won't miss any more of our fascinating stories we explore together. Also, if you're feeling generous, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share with anyone else who may enjoy it. Your support really does make a difference and keeps the content coming. Thanks again, and let's get back to the story. The Leannán Sídhe is not just a muse. She is a force of obsession, a hunger that never fades. Her lovers do not simply create, they burn. They chase perfection with an intensity that borders on madness, pushing themselves beyond their limits until they are hollowed out, exhausted and unable to stop. Many who fall under her influence are said to meet tragic ends, their brilliance cut short before its time. Many are driven to madness, lost in their own minds, caught between the world of inspiration and something far darker. Some artists, delirious with inspiration, begin to hear voices whispering in the silence, voices that call them deeper into their work. Some claim to see her even when she is not there, standing in the corner of the room, watching, waiting, silent as a shadow. Others waste away, neglecting their own well-being as they devote every ounce of their energy to their work. There are those who simply disappear, vanishing without explanation, leaving behind unfinished manuscripts, half-written songs, or paintings that seem to whisper of something beyond human comprehension. And then there are those who take their own lives, unable to endure the weight of their own talent, their genius turning against them in the end. And yet, none of them want her to leave. Even as they waste away, even as they grow hollow-eyed and weak, they hold on to her with desperation, because the thought of losing her gift is worse than death itself. The connection between creativity and self-destruction is a fear that has haunted artists for centuries. Many of the greatest minds in history, the poets who drank themselves to death, the painters who mutilated themselves, the musicians who succumbed to addiction, seem to follow a pattern, as if brilliance and suffering are inseparable. Some believe this is the nature of genius itself, that those who see the world differently are doomed to struggle with what they create. Others whisper that perhaps it is something more, that perhaps the Leannán Sídhe never truly disappeared, that her lovers still walk among us, still lost in the obsession she planted within them. Madness is often the final price of her gift. Not all who fall under her spell perish young, but even those who survive rarely escape unscathed. They are left with a hunger that cannot be satisfied, an emptiness that can never be filled. Some continue to create, but they know it will never be the same. For those who are caught in her grasp, there is no easy escape. Even if they recognize the danger, even if they try to resist, the pull of inspiration is too strong. How does one choose an ordinary life when they have tasted something beyond the reach of ordinary men? This is why so few survive her. Not because she kills them, not because she forces them into ruin, but because they cannot bear to let her go. And so, they throw themselves into their work, knowing that it will destroy them, knowing that she is watching, knowing that they are already lost. The story of the Leannán Sídhe is not just about art, creation, and self-destruction. It is also a story about love, about passion that consumes, and about the fear of losing oneself in something greater than desire. She is not simply a muse or a curse. She is the ultimate symbol of a love that is too powerful, too overwhelming, too impossible to survive. Love, in its purest form, is often seen as something that lifts, something that inspires and strengthens. But there is another side to it, a side that is darker, more dangerous. Love can become obsession, devotion can turn into possession, and passion can destroy as easily as it can create. The Leannán Sídhe embodies this fear, the idea that there are some loves that do not nurture but drain, that take and take until there is nothing left. Unlike other fairy lovers of Celtic myth, she does not ask for devotion, she is sought. Men and women who encounter her do not resist, because what she offers is intoxicating. She gives them inspiration, talent, brilliance beyond anything they could have achieved on their own. But in doing so, she takes control. Her lovers do not love her the way one loves another person. They love her the way a drowning man loves air, desperately, recklessly, without thought for the consequences. This is why she is feared, not because she forces herself upon anyone, but because she makes herself impossible to resist. The fear of the Leannán Sídhe is not just the fear of death, it is the fear of losing control, of being consumed by something greater than yourself. Her story is a warning, not just to artists and dreamers, but to anyone who has ever loved too deeply, given too much, or lost themselves in another. Because once she has taken hold, once she has been let in, she does not leave quietly. She lingers in the mind, in the heart, in the soul, whispering, reminding, haunting. And for those who have known her touch, no other love will ever feel real again. The Leannán Sídhe's power does not come from brute strength, nor does she wield magic in the way of sorcerers or gods. She does not need to. Her influence is far more insidious, slipping into the mind rather than the body, taking hold in ways that cannot be undone. She does not force her chosen ones into submission. They fall willingly, helplessly, drawn into her grasp by a force stronger than reason. In addition to the power of inspiration which we covered before, there are whispers that a single kiss from the Leannán Sídhe is enough to bind a soul to her forever. Some believe this is the moment the bargain is sealed, the instant a person is marked as hers. Others claim the kiss itself is the final act, that when she presses her lips to theirs, it is the last thing they will ever feel. Once she takes her fill, once they have nothing left to give, she moves on, leaving only whispers and unfinished works behind. Despite her terrifying nature, the Leannán Sídhe is not without weaknesses. Like many of the Ys Sídhe, she is said to be repelled by iron, which burns her skin and disrupts her power. In some tales, a person who carries an iron token, a ring, a nail, a shard of metal, can keep her at bay, though few who seek her ever think to do so. Holy ground is another barrier she cannot cross. Churches, consecrated lands, and sacred places stand as protections against her influence, keeping those within safe from her reach. But the most effective way to escape the Leannán Sídhe's grasp is the hardest of all: to reject her gift entirely. Those who refuse the inspiration she offers, who turn away before she can sink her claws into their mind, are the only ones who truly escape. But it is easier said than done. The lure of greatness is powerful, and few have the strength to walk away from what she offers. The ones who do are left with a lingering ache, a sense of something missing, something they can never quite grasp. They will always wonder what could have been, what brilliance they turned away from, what masterpieces might have been created if they had only accepted the price. In the end, the Leannán Sídhe does not chase her victims, nor does she need to trick them. The choice is always theirs. And that is why she is so dangerous. The story of the Leannán Sídhe has never remained static. Like all myths, it has shifted over time, taking on new meanings as cultures changed and fears evolved. What began as a tale of a supernatural muse who gifted inspiration at the cost of life and sanity became something more. A reflection of how people have always struggled with the price of genius, the burden of obsession, and the fear of losing oneself to something greater. In the oldest traditions, the Leannán Sídhe was tied to the Ys Sídhe, a descendant of the powerful race of gods who ruled over Ireland before retreating into the otherworld. Some believed she was one of them, while others claimed she was a servant of the Morrigan, the war goddess, or perhaps an independent force, a fairy who existed outside the rule of any divine power. In these early stories, she was neither wholly good nor evil. She did not seek to destroy her lovers, nor did she necessarily mean to harm them. She was simply a force of nature, one that could not be resisted without consequence. As Ireland became increasingly Christianized, her legend darkened. No longer seen as merely an inspiring muse, she took on characteristics closer to a demonic seductress. The idea that artistic brilliance might come from an external, supernatural source clashed with Christian beliefs, and she became a creature of temptation, a corrupting force that led men away from God. Her lovers were no longer simply tragic figures. They were sinners, lured to their doom by their own unchecked desires. It was during this time that her association with death became stronger. She was no longer just a muse who took her lovers too soon. She became an omen, a grim spirit who claimed them as surely as the grave. By the time of the Romantic and Gothic literary movements, the Leannán Sídhe had evolved again. While still feared, she became more of a symbol, no longer a literal fairy, but a representation of the artist's struggle. The idea that true genius comes at a terrible cost. The tortured poet, the painter who loses themselves in their work, the musician who cannot stop playing even as their body fails. These were the new versions of her lovers. The belief that great art required suffering became deeply ingrained in Western culture, and her story fit perfectly into this narrative. Even in modern times, her legend lingers, though often in subtle ways. She is found in the myths of celebrity culture, the tragic musician who dies at their peak, the writer who succumbs to their own mind, the actor who is consumed by their craft. Her influence is present in every story of an artist who burns too brightly, every genius who cannot sustain the weight of their own talent. The Leannán Sídhe may no longer appear as a fairy woman in flowing red robes, but the fear she represents, the fear of losing control, of being consumed by one's own gifts, remains as strong as ever. Though few now believe in fairies, many still believe in the idea that talent and madness go hand in hand. The world still chases inspiration at any cost, still idolizes those who sacrifice everything for their work. And in that way, the Leannán Sídhe has never disappeared. She has simply taken on new forms, whispering not in the ears of poets by candlelight, but in the restless minds of those who cannot stop creating, even when it destroys them.